So let me clear it off right off the bat. It's important to know that fasting is not a diet. Let me repeat, fasting is not a diet. It's simply a meal timing pattern.
Welcome to the good life.
While IG is getting rolling, we're rolling here. What's up, everybody? We are back. Welcome to another episode of the Good Life Visual Audio Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, C Muzan. I got Coach Kabi in the building. Say what's up, Coach.
What up? No, why do you fail me? No. We are your uncles from another mother, your brothers behind the board.
The brothers.
Brothers.
7 out of 10. 7 out of 10, sir.
Oh, shit. All right, we'll get better.
Room for improvement, for sure.
That's right.
Happy August. Again, if y'all are watching this live, it's August 2nd. We're second day into the 8th month of the year. It's exciting. How did your July finish up? How has your August started, brother?
Oh, this for me. Okay.
That is for you, man.
It started off a little rough, a lot of travel, a lot of projects in the air, a lot of things that needed to be decided, things that needed to take action on. And it finished up with a solid month of work, a solid month of building. And we're at it, man. I'm excited about some of the changes that we're making over here in the Good Life in particular. I think we are on our way to really going ahead and giving the people what they want.
Yes,
and then going ahead and, sneak in a little bit of the things that they need. All right. So we're here, guys. Your money, your health, it's important. And we're definitely out here trying to support you in that, man. And brother, how about you?
It was
give us your high and low for the month. Actually,
do that. High and low for the month. Ooh,
yeah, for the month. I know you can't remember what you had for breakfast this morning,
man. You know me too well. We're already at episode 129. You know me too well. I don't remember what I had for breakfast. Anyway, high for the month. A lot of family time this month. Like every weekend, we had people together. A lot of fellowship. Breaking bread, spending time with family. Again, on the Good Life, we got to talk about it. That is a part of the Good Life that's super important, our relationships. So that was a real highlight for a high point for the month. Another high point for the month, getting in our steps. I don't know. We mentioned it last episode. You kind of talked about it a little bit. But for all the listeners, hey, Coach and I and our good friend Dougal, we've been on a mission this month to pay attention to our steps, getting more than 10,000 steps, pushing ourselves to get to that 20,000 steps. And so that's another win this month that we've pushed ourselves and got out and got our bodies moving. That was exciting.
Yes, sir. Now, guys, I'm gonna let y'all behind the scenes a little bit here. This man that you're looking at, this man on the screen right here, C Zion. Okay, C Zion, OG Chris, OG. That's right. Call him what you will. Just make sure you call him.
That's right.
Had a rough start, man. Rough start to the challenge. Oh man, I'm calling this man out. He had a rough start. This man will show up with 500 steps. Talk about it should have been 500,000, and he just left. And he just left his phone on the desk for his walk to Timbuktu and back. All right. What are you talking about? I had to give him a hard time. Listen, we don't let our team members off the hook. We don't let our partners out the hook. We don't let our friends out the hook. We don't let the people that we care about off the hook. They say they're gonna do something, we hold them to it. And you know what? It was rough in the beginning, but I gotta go ahead and give you your props, my brother. My brother got significantly better. Right, whether he was walking or not, that's up to the good God. Between him and his God. But what we do know is this man was in upwards of 18,000 steps 1 or 2 days here and there. But congrats to you, my brother. Congrats to you. I just want to point out the growth here from negative 200 to about 2. Right? You did a great job.
Thank you.
Most improved.
I
J.R. Smith.
I appreciate the most improved award. But again, this is just it's the power of accountability. No excuses. Not saying that I wasn't doing the walking. I was, to my defense. But again, the situation had changed where I needed to keep my phone on me. There was just things that I was getting adjusted to in the first, let's say, 5 days, 6 days. I was getting adjusted. But again, because we had to get adjusted, it finally happened. After a little adjustment. We don't make excuses, we make adjustments.
Man says we don't make excuses after he takes 5 minutes to make excuses. Let us move on. Hembo, let's move on. Let's make sure we highlight this here. OG Chris here. Let's make sure we highlight this.
Highlight it.
Just like makes excuses for 2.5 minutes and then says no excuses.
Adjustments, not excuses. On to Detroit. What's up with Detroit? Detroit people
Murray after his terrible football season.
Detroit doesn't make any excuses, right? They're a city of no excuses. But what's happening over there? What's happening? I've actually seen some TikToks of some not good things happening in Detroit.
What have you seen? What could you possibly see about the great city of Detroit?
I don't
the representation of America.
I don't want to talk bad about
the beacon of hope.
Listen, I don't want to talk bad about their city, but let's just say wasn't a good light shining on Detroit on those TikToks.
Detroit, America. I want to go ahead and apologize for my partner, Simu Zion. Okay. I'll just go ahead and apologize for him right now because see what you're feeling here, the heat that you're getting through your mobile device, through your laptops, through your computer screens, through your soon to be, at your local pub, a local barbershop. We're going to be in barbershop talks here pretty soon. The heat that you're feeling there, that's just the old Philly hate. You know what I mean? He can't help himself. Philly hate is so strong. It's oozing out of his pores, man. He looks and he sees how great of a city Detroit is. He sees how hard these people work. He sees how much ingenuity you have to come up with to live in Detroit. He sees the rags to riches stories. He sees all of that, and he starts to hate.
It's not.
That's all he can do. Hate. Say it with me, America. Hate.
There's no hate. There's no hate on this side. There's no hate on this side. It's all love. But listen, let's just say Detroit's not in the greatest shape. But we're gonna continue to talk about Uncle Jalen's foundation, and we're gonna make this donation to Uncle Jalen's foundation, and we're gonna personally help the city. Because
JRLA. That's right. JRLA, Jalen Rose Leadership Academy in Detroit. Yes, it's the I Promise School. I get it. All right. But it's funded by a billionaire and his crew. Right. This is coming straight from the people. The people are looking out for Detroit. Right.
Listen, we need to look out. Sidebar on that I Promise School. Did you hear that, they got some bad press to say that no 8th grader has passed the state math test from that school? They said no 8th grader has passed the math.
Ever?
Yeah, at all. Like none of them. I don't know if that's true, but I definitely saw that article.
I did not see that.
I saw that headline.
That's funny.
Yeah. So either way, let's hope Uncle Jalen can do a little bit better with that on his academy.
Oh, that's right.
We're gonna make it happen. So, by the way, appreciate everybody checking in as always. Right, again, you see it over there on Instagram. Feel free to join us over there on Facebook, in our Facebook group. Again, you got it here as well. I thought I had it. What happened?
Wow.
There we go. Join us on the Facebook group. That's where we are dropping some additional content. You get a chance to get a little bit deeper into the health and wealth conversations with Kabi and I. And we just want to see you over there. We want to build community. We want to engage with you. We want to answer your questions. We want to support you, add value, help where we can, because that's what we're here to do. So let's dive into the section of our episode, which we call 2 by 2.
2 by 2.
This is our chance to talk about an important topic, or a topic that has made the headlines. We give you our 2-minute takes. Both could be in myself. Today, we are talking about this Barbie movie. Says months of planning by Mattel and Warner Brothers is paid off, because the Barbie movie has the highest opening weekend earnings domestically this year, raking at $155 million. The movie is at $155 million domestically, $337 worldwide on opening weekend. Currently, it's at 366 million domestically, almost 800 million worldwide. Mattel and Warner Brothers are silent about the exact marketing budget for the movie, but they said it was not as high as people think it was, maybe between 125 million to 150 million. What's your take on this movie, bro? Like, what's the hype?
This is the epitome of marketing. This is it right here. Obviously, as you know, friends of the show, well, y'all are family members, actually. If you've been watching this show for a while, you're a family member. I just want you to know that, right? You're a family member. You're part of the show. Make sure that you comment, you message, and let your voice be heard. You are essentially, what do they call it? The fourth estate. You are the fourth estate. Without you, there is no show. And I just want you guys to know that. And why did I take, almost half of my 2 by 2 here to give you guys praise? It's not just because I love you guys, right? That's not just it. It's because there's nothing else to talk about. This is a marketing job. And no, I haven't seen this movie. No, I haven't. Well, what I do know is it's not as marketing budget wasn't as high as you thought it was. It was only around $150 million. Whoa, $150 million for marketing? Oh, makes sense. I can tell, because they took over every billboard. They are in songs. They are in other movies. They are in commercials all over Spotify, all over TV, all over a podcast, all over, little games, video games, all over everywhere. I mean, it is a masterclass in marketing. And why wouldn't you do so? If you can spend 150 million and gross 800 million globally just in the first week, right? Oh, I'm doing that 10 times over, right? And this is also, it speaks to writer's strike, right? I've noticed, keep my ears to the streets. I've noticed a much greater emphasis on stories that are almost kind of like tried and tested, or like proven, and let's just spend a ton of money on it, because we know we can make something impressive enough to make more money off it, rather than investing in story writing, right? That's why the writers are probably on strike. Rather than investing in originality, they keep going back to the same wells. And, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it's going to work out well. You're right. This is a masterclass in marketing. Guys, you've been watching the show at all. We talk about ownership. We talk about entrepreneurship. We have a conversation around owning businesses and what we have to do in order to grow a business. This Barbie brand, right? I think it's so vast. The movie, the thing that's interesting to me is that the movie is really just going to lead to actual Mattel Barbie doll sales also, right? Like, the movie is independent itself, great, gonna bring in money, obviously, right? Got stars. They marketed it very well, like you said, in music, different channels, right? All these different things, but it goes all the way back to their original product, the original vertical, which were the dolls. So the dolls are going to actually sell more because the movie came out. So the question is, was this all a ploy to sell dolls? It not just like, is this the marketing campaign to really sell dolls? Right? When you have big companies like Warner Brothers and Mattel together, they say, okay, the movie's really just marketing for the dolls. Sure, it brings in some revenue, but what's the end goal? I think it's really for the dolls. Either way, Mattel is very smart. Shout out to all the Barbie fans. I heard it was a pretty good movie, right? People are enjoying it. They're going out, they're watching it, they're dressing up. It's like, kind of a cultural type of following. So again, what
Due
can
to
we
the
learn?
marketing.
What do you say?
Due to the marketing. They
Due to the
literally just
marketing.
embedded themselves into the culture.
Very
And it
true.
makes a lot of sense, But I'll say this. I think there's a lack of, we're suffering from a real lack of substance, culturally speaking.
Totally.
Right. There's a lot of recycling in music, recycling in movie. There's like very little original sort of new things coming out. It's more of recycling of the old, where corporations pour a ton of money into it and just try to squeeze every dollar that they can out of it. And quite, call me old, call me, what you will, but I just don't like it, man. I just don't like it.
You're old. You're old, man. Come on.
All right. Well,
Put
if
your
I'm
overalls.
old, you're a fossil.
Put your overalls on.
I do love overalls.
Hike up those overalls, sir.
I do love me overalls. That's true.
Either way, good lesson in marketing. Pay attention, guys. Marketing is one of those major pillars in building a business. You can learn some things. Success leaves clues, right? There's some things missing, but we can always learn some stuff from the big company. So
I don't know if you've ever heard, man. Wiz Khalifa said something very interesting. He was like, listen, corporations don't come up with original ideas. They are not capable of doing that. What they are capable of is taking what we come up with. By we, he's referring to himself, obviously, and other creators, right? What we come up with originally, and then they can take that and polish it up and make millions and millions off of it, but they don't come up with original ideas. And when I see this Barbie plastered all over LA, that's kind of what I think about.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's dive into the show.
Let's do it.
Today, ladies and gentlemen, topic of the show is fasting. We're talking about just some of the common questions, some of the common conversations around this topic of fasting. Obviously, here on The Good Life, we're talking health and wealth, the things that are important foundationally for us to be able to get to the life that we want. And this segment of fasting in our health, I don't know if it's become more popular recently because we have things like social media, so we're seeing it more often and people are consuming more of the information around fasting. So they're trying it. Maybe it's just, that people are really getting some forms of results and just want to do it. Maybe it's just, I don't know. We're in that place where, I don't know, fasting has become culturally, acceptable again. I'm not sure. But it's important to have this conversation and talk over some of these nuances. Coach, you've dealt in a ton of this type of stuff. You have a ton of information on fasting. We're obviously not going to get through all of the things that you have and all of the expertise on your side. But just to kind of start out, man, give us some like high level of like, why are people fasting? What are you hearing in the fasting world? And before we start diving into some of the nuances of like what's important and the how to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important for us to start with, kind of defining what it is that we're talking about. And a lot of people get confused with this on a very high level. So let me clear it up right off the bat. It's important to know that fasting is not a diet. Let me repeat. Fasting is not a diet. It's simply a meal timing pattern. And in fact, it's only recently just been that, which is a meal timing pattern. Fasting, if you trace it back, at least to my first knowledge of fasting, was through more so religious and spiritual fasting, where of course you're still playing with whether or not you're eating food, what types of food you're eating for some people. But ultimately, it was to enlighten oneself. It was to elevate one's consciousness. So, if that being the case, one of the oldest uses of fasting, then we can, for I myself cannot ignore the spiritual side of fasting and the elevation of the consciousness and the connection that one feels to other living beings or living entities when we go ahead and remove some of this quite frankly waste product between us and other living creatures. So let's start from there. Not a diet. It's a meal time and pattern where essentially you're changing the frequency of your meals, not necessarily your diet. Okay. So, for example, right, you can essentially apply fasting, which is the pattern in which you're eating, to any kind of diet. Okay, whether you're keto, whether you're paleo, whether you're oleo, whether you're a folio, whatever you are, don't you can apply fasting to that. Obviously, what you're eating in a way will dictate what patterns um, of eating that will be best for you and your goals. So let me stop there because I
No,
think
it's
it's
good.
important that we clarify that and see if there are any questions around that.
Yeah, I think that's just a good place to start because you probably hear that a bunch. That word fasting and diet kind of come up in similar terms, or like, reference similarly. So to make that distinction, to understand that fasting and dieting are not the same thing, I think it's a really, really important uh piece of information for people to understand.
Yep.
So starting there is important.
When that is understood, right? That is what fasting is, not a diet, but a meal timing pattern. Then we can talk about specifically what a lot of people refer to, which is more of intermittent fasting,
Mm.
right? Intermittent fasting is the type of fasting. Okay. So again, fasting, not a diet. Intermittent fasting is only a type of fasting. And let's dive into that a little bit. So with intermittent fasting, the focus is on the timing of the fast itself, right? The timing of the fast itself. So why do I emphasize that? You can emphasize or focus on the timing of the eating window. You can also focus on the timing of the fast window. Some will say two sides of the same coin, but the focus is different. I've practiced both, where you focus on one or the other, and it is a slightly different approach to it. But that's what intermittent fasting is, with the most popular version being a 16-8, right? Where you have a 16-hour fasting window and an 8-hour eating window. And it's important that we point out that for most people, when they refer to this stuff, we're talking about um, solid foods for most people, right? So keep in mind here, I say it's not a diet. Fasting is not a diet. A lot of people confuse juicing, fruits, and all of those different methods of augmenting what it is you're eating with fasting, which is when are you eating and when are you not eating. It's a pretty big difference, right?
Sure.
We can augment what you're eating, whether you're eating solid cooked foods, raw solid foods, liquids, cooked liquids, heated liquids, broths, etc., raw liquids, right? We can play with all of that stuff. And this is why I hesitate to call that fasting. I always, if you remember, I always call it a solid food vacation.
Right.
It's very different than fasting, where I'm augmenting the time frame in which I'm eating. Right. And I think a lot of people don't understand that difference.
Well, again, it's also because we use the term differently, right? So I even think that, like, us saying, you can fast from something, just even saying that, like, because I've said that before, you can fast from sugar, you can fast from social media, right? So even saying it, I think it's something in the language when we're saying it in that manner that people may get confused, uh, because we use it for a different form of expressing giving something up, right? That's how I think of that term and how we use fast.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's thanks for breaking that down from that perspective. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
As and it makes a lot of sense as to why we get into a lot of confusion. The confusion is in the language.
Right.
The confusion is in the language. So I talked about the most popular intermittent fast being 16, 16, 8. There's also 18, 6, 24, and 20, even 21, or 24 is probably where we stop.
So again,
Uh,
that's 18 hours not
fast
eating.
not eating window, and
Right.
then
And
exactly
and
6
then
hours of
6 hour
feeding
eating
window,
window.
and then a 20-hour not eating window, and a 4-hour window. In my opinion, once you get over 24 hours, you're in what I would consider prolonged fast, right? So that means that you're no longer really doing this as a lifestyle, sort of a daily thing. But 22 hours and beyond, you're doing this kind of like a one-time shot thing, right? So whether you're doing 22, whether you're doing 36, 48, 72 a week, 5 days to a week, 7 days, etc., right? Now you're in like that's not a lifestyle, right? That's a one time occurrence. Obviously, you may do it multiple times. I'm not saying you do it just once, but
Mhm.
that's less of like an intermittent. That's no longer intermittent fasting. Let's call
Right.
it that.
Right.
You're now in a prolonged fast.
Do you recommend one of those over the other, like from different levels of starting? Like if somebody's just starting off versus somebody not like in intermittent fasting time, do you recommend 16 over 18 over 20, or how does that work?
I'll answer that question by saying this: I cannot put in a recommendation without knowing any sort of information as to what's going on.
Right.
Right. So I can't sit here and recommend one over the other without knowing who I'm talking to, what are they dealing with, what are their goals, what is their medical background, etc. So what I can do on this is give you the information, right? And then if you want to have a more deeper conversation with your doctor, with myself, although I am not a doctor and I'm not your doctor. Um, and at that point, you can have that conversation. But this is something I harp on quite a bit, so I'm not going to repeat that mistake of making blind recommendations
Right.
without knowing who it is that I'm talking to. I would, however, say that you probably shouldn't jump into the deep end if you've never done it. Right? I would suggest that you gradually work your way up. So how I did it is I started with a 16-8, right? And I saw how it feels there. Because and Chris, this is what I say is one of the most important things you can consider in fasting and a lot of things with health is like the speed of transition really matters.
Mm.
Right? The speed of transition really matters. And I'm not saying that slower is better or faster is better. I'm just saying they are very different.
Right.
Right. So one or the other could have a very different impact. So let me go into this just a little bit here. So when you're progressing, this is important to know. It's kind of like maybe will help someone make a decision as to where to try or how to enter into this piece, right? So a 16-hour fast can do things like help lower insulin levels, get your body more accustomed to burning fat, because obviously if you're eating all the time, you're never going to be in your quote unquote fat burning or mode. You're always going to be storing rather than diving deep into your body fat for fuel, essentially, right? Progressing to the 18-hour fast is where we start to see more of like fat loss and also cellular recycling, right? So I've talked about this well, and part of why I said cellular recycling is because I struggle to pronounce the word, but it's autophagy, right? Cell death,
Mm.
right? And then for more experienced individuals, 20 hour, 24 hour, 20 hour, 22, 24-hour fast can be extremely helpful in terms of, again, fat loss, glycogen depletion, and also promoting metabolic flexibility, meaning the ability to move from one form of energy to another.
Gotcha. Most of this are you thinking a water fast? What are some of the ways to fast I know, again, we're talking about time, right? But like, if somebody is starting to have this conversation, 20 hours of what is that the next conversation for somebody to figure out is like, okay, what am I doing for this intermittent time?
I don't fully understand the question. However, I think what you're saying is, what do I eat when I'm eating?
Yeah, right. When you're eating, what do you change it? Does it make sense to change what you're eating during that time? Because I know some people have said like, oh, well, if you're doing intermittent fasting, it doesn't matter what you eat during that time period because it's more about the time than it is about what. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So again, to drill this in a little bit, when we're talking about fasting, we're talking about time, right? Intermittent fast, we're talking about time. When you start to talk about diet, right, that is the what you're eating. Okay. Um, our and then let me actually go ahead and let me answer this question first. Your your diet should be set before the fast. Meaning, if your diet is terrible, you're eating Doritos all the time, yeah, and you're eating food that we know, we being the general consensus, knows not exactly the best, right? If you eat Twinkies every day of the, it's probably going to do something not too great to you, right? Um, it does matter. It does matter what you eat, but the question is, do you care? Right? What does it matter for? What are your goals? All right. Because, I make the mistake as a coach sometimes of thinking that my goals or the goals that I see for somebody is the same goals that they actually care about.
Right.
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 I've met many of the clients that will say, hey, listen, you know what? Quite frankly, I don't care about all this health stuff. I just want a six pack. Right. Hey, honestly, great. Don't care. What is it going to take for me to look sexy on my wedding day? That's all they care about.
Yeah.
Right. So, me trying to push what is going to have them live a better quality life, what is going to have them live a longer life, what is going to have them have better metabolic numbers, etc. Don't care, right? So your goal matters. So to answer that question, I would need to know what do you care about? What is your goal, right? Just because I want you to live a healthy, amazing, abundant life doesn't mean that's what you want. And that goal is going to determine, do you even fast? Is what do you consume during that fast? But again, it's important to separate diet from the fast. Very important. Those are not the same thing. Again, you can be a carnivore, you can be an herbivore, you can be an omnivore, you can be a whatever it is that your diet is, and still apply time restricted eating or time or manipulating the time in which you eat, right? So should you be thinking about that? Yes, you should, because if you're eating terrible food, regardless of you manipulating the time, it's going to have an impact on you. That doesn't change,
Sure.
right? It doesn't change. You don't all of a sudden defy all biological law and you can eat whatever it is that you want to eat at whatever time. Now, somebody may say, it doesn't matter. Well, ask them, why doesn't it matter? It doesn't matter because I can still look the way that I want to look. Oh, okay, cool. In that case, yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter. You can still look the way that you want to look, eat the way you want to eat, and just apply fasting, and it'll all be completely fine. But if you care about your heart, if you care about your internal organs, if you care about your vitality, remember, I always talk about this. There are three. There are three, right? There are three Venn diagrams we need to be very aware of in the area of health, right? Vitality, all right? Vitality or longevity, if you want to put that all in one, whatever. Performance and aesthetics, right? Those overlap, but they're not all the same circle, right? So when we're looking at this, we have to think about that. Do you care about vitality, longevity, performance, right? Or do you care about aesthetics, how you look, how you feel, or how you perform? How you look, how you feel, or how you perform. Those are the things we're playing with, right? An athlete might care a lot more about how they perform.
Right.
A model might care a lot more, or a bodybuilder might care a lot more about how they look.
Yeah.
You might care a lot more as a corporate athlete and how you feel on a day-to-day basis. I don't know, right? But they're not all the same thing. Okay. And it's important as well too, so we have time where you're playing with the time when I'm eating. You have your diet, what you're eating, and you have medicine. Those are not the same thing. Diet and medicine are not the same thing. Right? Diet is what you consume on a regular basis to give you energy, sustenance for life, building blocks for life, etc. Medicine is supposed to be a temporary adjustment, whether it's something you're consuming, putting on you, etc., to correct an imbalance or to help the body correct an imbalance. Big difference. So when you talk about something like when somebody like a John Rose, etc., or a Dr. Max Gerson or a Dr. Sebi talks about these things, they're talking about medicine to correct to help the body correct an imbalance. And then some of them might talk about diet to maintain that state. Okay. So I can go take some medicine, but if I go back to consuming the same diet that got me there, well, did the medicine not work, or did I just not change my underlying issues and get there? All right. So big difference in us understanding these different terms and how they actually apply.
Yeah, it's clearly that it's a lot in the language, right? It's a lot in us learning the words, learning the terms, because that's going to give us clarity around all of these topics that we're talking about. So I'm glad we could talk about this.
Yes. And to kind of bring it back a little bit here to, again, we're talking about different forms. I just gave you intermittent time form or intermittent fasting form, 16, 8, et cetera, to prolong fasting, 22 and above, in my opinion. But we also have to look at, or this is a piece that I want to explain due to a question that we have that a lot of people kind of confuse, right? When people typically assume that intermittent fasting means you skip breakfast. And people also assume that breakfast is, they really think about breakfast foods eaten in the morning rather than the actual meaning of the word, which is the breaking of your fast, right? I talk about that quite a lot. It's a lot of language confusion there. But that's not what intermittent fasting is. Again, it's just the timing, right? So just as you could skip breakfast, right, or the meal that you're eating in the morning or whatever, you could also do what we call early time restricted feeding, right? Early time restricted feeding, meaning you actually eat earlier in the day and you stop eating sometime around lunch, let's say 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there, and then you close out your feeding window for the day. So you're actually skipping what we would typically call dinner based on the timing, right? You see, this thing is really pervasive, this language thing, right? Because we call dinner the meal that you eat in the evening or the last meal that you eat, etc. We also have dinner foods, the foods that are appropriate to eat at those times. So dinner might refer to the food, or it might refer to the timing. It might refer to the diet, or it might refer to the timing.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Right. And this stuff is very different in every diet, every language, because dinner, supper, those things are different in French versus Spanish. So in a way, it almost kind of like dictates how we think about how we consume food. You see what I'm saying?
It's very true. I'm watching it in my 6-year-old. I'm watching it in our like this was actually, it's funny that you're talking about this because I'm remembering when my daughter was maybe 4 years old, she's learning her meals, but she eats different things at different times. Like we're not traditional where she eats like pancakes and eggs and stuff in the morning. Like she may have pasta, right? She may eat pasta as her first meal. She may eat fruit as her first meal. She may eat a salad as her first meal. Like she doesn't actually know what breakfast. She was struggling to figure out what breakfast, what lunch is, because like her first meal, we're calling it breakfast, but when she's asking for pasta and it's like, 10:30, 11 o'clock, she's like, is this lunch? Like she was really trying to figure it out. So it's interesting to kind of think of it from that perspective of like, not just like there are breakfast foods, dinner foods, and then it also refers to the time of the day that we eat. So learning how to, that probably is an area we have to unlearn to relearn new things that go in the direction that we're trying to take our lives or our health life specifically.
Yeah, 1000%. And I always recommend this book, Double Speak, for that reason. A lot of how we think is encompassed in the language that we grow up with,
Mhm.
right? Specifically the language, because that's how we operate up here for most of us. So it's important that we examine the language that we're using. How did we learn what we learned? Who told us that lunch was the one in the middle of the day? And what types of food should we be eating? How much should we be eating at lunch versus dinner versus breakfast versus supper versus snack versus whatever, right? So a lot of how we learn how to take care of ourselves really is just like it's just us grabbing our interpretation, because you notice that this stuff changes generation by generation through what I see as like a game of telephone, right? So great grandma chops the ends off of the turkey and puts it in a pot and sticks it in a bone. Grandma chops the ends of turkey, puts it in a pot and go. And mom does the same thing. And granddaughter goes, Mom, why do you do that? I don't know. Ask grandma. Grandma, why you do that? I don't know. Ask great grandma. Great grandma, why you do that? I don't know. I just did it because my pot was small.
Mhm.
Right.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of that happening here. It's a
Mhm.
lot of that happening here. Um, but let me take it back real quick here to other forms of more so prolonged fasting. One that I talked about, early time restricted fasting. That's one that people should understand in terms of the timing piece and all of that. Um, but another one that's really interesting that I like quite a bit is ADF. ADF, alternate day fasting. Alternate day fasting, essentially, just as it sounds, you're eating one day and not eating the next, essentially.
Mm.
Right? Very, very, and highly effective at controlling, or at least the studies have shown highly effective as controlling calories, highly effective as at reducing overeating and effectiveness of that stuff. So I do like alternative fasting. It can be tough for some people to adjust to. But again, if you do alternate day fasting and you are just eating horribly on your day, yeah, I've heard some people say it doesn't matter, but I just don't believe that. I believe your
Mm.
quality of your food always matters. This
Sure.
is just a way for us to maybe accomplish other goals in our life.
I agree. The quality always matters. This just gives us kind of that other area of focus, I think. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Another form of fasting I'll put out there that a lot of people don't know about is what they call the Hollywood fast, where you eat normally for 5 days and you'll fast intensively for, let's say, 48 hours, or essentially equivalent of a monk fast. Um, I personally haven't done this one, or not for an extended period of time, but it's one that could work. Again, this is one where we can look at our lifestyle, we can look at what our schedule, et cetera, and find the one that works both in terms of our body, our mind, our spirit, our time, our family, et cetera. So I really think there's a lot of different ways to play with fasting. The idea that we should all be pigeonholed into 3 meals a day, one before whatever time and this stuff. It just makes no sense because our bodies don't work the same way. We don't all live in the same places. We don't have access to the same foods. It just doesn't make any sense that we should. How did this come to be that we just are? I think it came to be as like many things, our life was dictated, right? Our life was dictated by the work that we do or the way that we earn money and take care of ourselves and our family.
agreed. 1,000%. 1,000%. Again, that's why I just mentioned there's some unlearning and relearning we got to do, and I think that's really where we sit on this side, right? There's some unlearning and definitely some relearning we have to do when it comes to specifically our eating habits, our timing around our eating, our language around what we're saying in our around our food. All these things are incredibly important. So somebody on Instagram said predictive programming. That's exactly what it is, right? Predictive programming. So awesome, man. As we get this thing wrapped up today, as we get the show wrapped up, I know you didn't even get a chance to go through like half of the things that you wanted to go through.
I didn't even get in my bag yet. Listen, excuse me. Listen, you guys have to let us know, right? What episodes you enjoy, what topics you enjoy. Presentation, guys, you are really part of the show. So let us know. And, if the part 2 is necessary, or you want a part 2, not as necessary, but you want a part 2, that's what we're going to bring. I'm ready. I'm locked and loaded. I got the information for you. Let me know. Let us know in our Facebook group that's pinned over here on Instagram, and we'll be under the comments, etc., or in the description and whatnot, in YouTube, everywhere that you see this. That's where you can go ahead and actually interact with us and let us know. So we'll be keeping our eye out there, and we'll be waiting for you.
That's right. That's right. You got a last take? I'll give my last take really quick for the show, because this actually hits home, right? I've done fasting work with you, all of those different timings on fasting, probably done 3 of those, right? The 16, 18, and then we did 36. We did 36 before, a weekly 36. And guys, just being able to know that there's a certain time for me to eat and certain time for my body then to now do what it needs to do. Your body gets in a rhythm. My body got in a rhythm, right? Where now, going to the bathroom at the same time, it just knows when it's time to do certain things. And again, what you talked about in the show about feeling great, right? If that part of it is important in your health, feeling great is important, then we have to start doing the right things that allow us to feel good. And for me, fasting in any of those ways, in any of those time periods, made my body feel better. So I definitely recommend. And again, if you don't know, you haven't started, reach out to Kabi, have a conversation with a doctor, right? Talk about this stuff, because it can really benefit you now and in the future. But that's my take on fasting.
I love it, brother. I love it. And if you guys want to hear part 2, where we'll talk about, things like, how to break a fast, what should you eat during a fast, more specifically, not in general, fasting superfoods. Let's say some, should women fast, pregnant women fast, some supplements that may help you out. What about alcohol? What about weed? What about all that stuff? If you have that question, let us know and we'll do a part 2 to this. But until next time, go ahead and get in that Facebook group and share this episode with somebody. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for your time this time. And until next time, peace.
Later, y'all.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Good Life.
If you enjoy this episode, please take a moment to subscribe and like our channel.
If you have any feedback or suggestions for future episodes, please leave us a comment down below.
If you're listening to the podcast audio version, we appreciate you just as much. Thank you for tuning into The Good Life Show.
We believe that everyone has the potential to live their best life, and we hope our show helps you get that one step closer to achieving your goal.
If you know someone who would benefit from our show, please share it with them, and thank you for your continued support.
That's it for another week's episode here on The Good Life. We'll see you next week for another inspiring conversation.
Welcome to the Good Life.